Hi everybody, my name is Sandra. Welcome to your practice. Welcome to Joshua Tree National Park. A few words about today's topic before we get started. It's not the person, so it's not you that needs to accommodate yourself to yoga. It's rather the yoga practice must be tailored to fit the person. This is a very common understanding, and this is also why we're using props, such as yoga blocks, blankets or yoga belts. In today's class we'll be using blocks quite a lot, and I would like you to explore how they help you to make certain poses more accessible and how they also help you to get your very personal most out of it. Now when we are wearing clothes, we usually choose a size that fits us well. Occasionally we might hope or we might wish that we would comfortably fit in a smaller size, but usually we acknowledge reality and we go for a size that fits us well. Let's have the same approach on mat with our asana practice. That means don't just wear a pose like you would wear a pair of jeans that is too tight. Instead, acknowledge reality, acknowledge the very body that you have, and work with it, which means using props in certain circumstances. Now, for the more advanced students amongst you, this class can be a chance to cultivate the beginner spirit, to go back to the basics. And even if you find that you don't need to work with blocks, especially if you do this class for the very first time, I invite you to follow me on this. Simply because it helps you to explore asanas and poses you might think you know 100% well, maybe in an entirely new way. We start in a sitting position, and you want to sit on a block. So elevate the floor a tiny little bit by sitting on a block in a cross-legged position. Feel your sit bones grounding nicely into your yoga block, and allow the crown of your head to rise tall towards the sky, relaxing your shoulders away from your ears. Face being soft and relaxed. The next time you inhale, draw your shoulders high towards the ears. Take a deep, deep inhale, deeper than you usually would, and freeze here. Hold your breath. And then gently open your mouth, release your shoulders away from your ears again. Still growing tall. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale. Inhale deeper than you usually would. Maybe another sip of air. Draw your shoulders high. And then gently open your mouth. Let your shoulders go. One last time. Deep inhale. And release as you exhale. Allow your eyes to fall close. Now give your body a few moments to arrive on your mat. And allow your mind a few moments to arrive in your body. Face being relaxed, shoulders relaxed away from your ears, all the while the crown of your head is reaching high towards the sky. Growing tall from the foundation, which are your sit bones. A few more moments here, directing your attention carefully to the breath, coming and going at the tip of your nose. Before you release your arms down by the sides of your body, gently open your eyes. Palms face the front, spread your fingers wide. Take an inhale, sweep your arms out to the sides and up. Gaze towards your palms as they touch, and then gently bring your hands back down into prayer. Interlace your fingers here. Take an inhale. As you exhale, push the air away, round your spine. Head is heavy, spread your shoulder blades wide, wide, wide. On your next inhale, come to upright, palms face the sky. And now allow your shoulders to reach high towards the ears. There's nothing wrong about that, as long as we don't make this a habit and just freeze here forever. So draw the shoulders high towards the ears and observe on how this lengthens your waist. Reaching high, encourage deep breathing into your rib cage. Feel how your rib cage expands in all directions. And the next time you exhale, twist to your right side, left hand on your opposite knee or thigh, and your right palm goes onto your sacrum. Roll the right shoulder back. Make sure your chin doesn't drop. The spine is growing tall. On your next inhale, back to center, reach your fingertips high. As you exhale, second side. So the left palm goes onto your sacrum, which is the mid-lower back. Roll the left shoulder back. Allow the left shoulder blade to travel down the back ribs, so to firm against the back ribs. On your next inhale, sweep your arms out to the sides. Come all the way back to center. Release your arms down by the sides of your body and bring your feet to the floor in front of you. Feet want to be parallel. Bring your hands behind you, flat on the floor, palms flat on the floor, fingertips face the front. Now roll the shoulders back and lift your heart. Your elbows bend a tiny little bit. With your palms flat on the floor, add a tiny little bit of a pulling action without having your hands actually move, but dragging towards the front. And you might feel that this adds a little bit of space in between your collarbones. Have another deep cycle of breath here. Before you come back to upright, and now swing both legs to the left of your block, towards the left side of your block. Reposition your seat, growing tall towards the sky. Sweep your arms out to the sides and up. And now the next time you exhale, bend over to the left. Bring your left hand flat on the floor. Make sure you reach strongly through your upper arm. Make sure your upper elbow is straight. And make sure we do not collapse our lower shoulder. Lift your gaze maybe. Deep breathing. On your inhale, come all the way back to upright. On your exhale, sweep your arms down by the sides of your body. Get hold of your left foot. Swing it a little bit further back. The top of the foot is on the floor. Fingertips behind you, the face, the front. Roll the shoulders back. Lift your heart once more. Bend your elbows slightly if you like to. And either stay where you are or see whether you want to lift your buttocks away from your yoga block. Make sure we do not collapse in the shoulders. You might feel a gentle stretch or maybe even a little bit more intense in your thighs. Slowly come all the way back down to a sit. Swing your left foot back to the front, to the outside of your right thigh. Readjust your seat so you want to ground both sit bones firmly down into the floor. Left foot grounds firmly in the floor as well. Hug your left knee to upright your spine nicely. Shoulders relaxed. Take an inhale. On your exhale, with maximum length in your spine, twist to your left. Left hand again goes to the sacrum. Allow the twist to distribute equally through your spine. Maybe take the neck a little bit out of the equation. We tend to over twist the neck only because it's the most mobile part of our spine already. Continue breathing. On your next inhale, come all the way back to center. Sweep your arms out and up. As you exhale, release your arms down. Lean a little bit back. Feet onto the floor. Bring your hands behind you, maybe flat on the floor, the fingertips, whatever works for you. And now lift your feet away from the floor. Have the shins parallel. Point the feet. And now only flex the toes. Barbie feet. Spread the toes wide so you feel the air in between your toes. Stay here. Or if you want to go further, see whether you want to extend your legs. Before we bring our feet all the way back to the floor, swing your legs to the second side, both feet on the right side of your block. Growing tall, sweep your arms out as you inhale, reach through your fingertips. On your exhale, bend over to the right. Strongly reaching through your left fingertips, the upper elbow is engaged, so really straight. Make sure you do not collapse in your lower shoulder. Guide your breath deep into the side ribs, lengthening as much as you can from your left hip point to the left fingertips. Inhale back to upright. Exhale, sweep your arms down. Get hold of your right foot, swing it a little bit further back, top of the foot to the floor. Fingertips behind you, lift your heart. Stay as is, or if you have more room to play with, lift your buttocks slightly. Let's have 2 deep cycles of breath here. Increasing the space in between your collarbones. Jaws relaxed. Lower all the way back down. From here, swing your right foot back to the front, to the outside of your left thigh. Ground your sit bones firmly into the block. Right foot grounds into the floor. Hug your knee, lengthen your spine. Take an inhale, and with this, lengthen your spine. Twist to your second side. Each time you inhale, come a tiny little bit out of the twist and find even more length in your spine. Each time you exhale, release a little bit more into the twist, wringing out your spine as if you would wring out a wet sponge or a wet towel. Inhale, sweep your arms out to the sides, come to center. Exhale, release your arms down, lean back, bring the feet back to the floor. And now we're doing boat pose again. Maybe one of the previous versions we've tried. Or if you want to go further and challenge your balance a little bit, it's actually harder on the block than being on the floor. Reach your fingertips to the front. Face relaxed and soft. If you want to go further, straighten the legs. Can be quite balancing. Maybe you need to reposition your buttocks on your block. Lengthen your lower back. Lift your heart. Make sure your lumbar spine is really, really straight. Slowly bring your feet all the way back down to the floor. Open your knees a little bit wider. Reach your arms to the front, and with a little bit of momentum, come to standing. Release your upper body down. Flip-flop your feet hip joint width apart. Allow your upper body to be super, super, super heavy. And get the block, which is now behind you, and position it in front of you. But allow your upper body for now, forget about the block again, just to be really, really heavy. Knees bend. We take the legs out of the equation. No hamstring stretch really. Just feel gravity doing the job, allowing your upper body to drape over your thighs. Another deep inhale, guiding this inhale deep into your back rib cage. And as you exhale, maybe through your mouth, sink a little bit deeper again. Now the next time you inhale, keep the knees bent, but lengthen your spine. So keep the crown of your head reaching to the front, your sit bones reach back, roll the shoulders back and float the fingertips away from the floor. So encourage, lengthen your spine. And now see, when you straighten those legs and keep the exact length in your spine, whether having the block in an upright position works for you, or when you need to round the lower back, rather have your hands on your knees or your thighs. So be very honest to yourself. And those of you who wouldn't need a block at all, at least go for the lowest height. At least go for the lowest height today. Taking off the very edge. Lean a little bit further forwards towards the balls of your feet. Make sure your legs are perpendicular to the floor. Crown of your head is reaching to the front, sit bones reach back. Each time you inhale, feel your ribcage expanding in all directions. And then next time you exhale, with your knees gently bending, release all the way down again. Head is heavy. Now get hold of the block, holding it from the outside like so. And the next time you inhale, lift your heart, knees bend, reach your arms to the front, and take the block with you above your head, gently squeezing the block together. Fingertips reaching high towards the sky. Your legs gently engaged without locking your knees really. Lengthen the tailbone gently down. Having another cycle of breath here. The next time you exhale, bend your elbows, make sure they don't splay out to the sides, and bring your hands back down to a kind of prayer, but with the block in between your hands. From here, take the block and have it and position it in between your mid thighs. You choose whether you want to do it like this, like so in this position, or like that. So I would love if I had like a mid thing, but I don't, and I go for this. So I have to open my legs a little bit wider than I usually would in mountain pose. So your legs want to be relatively engaged, and what we add now is that we gently squeeze the block together. So why block in this situation? Bring your hands to your hips. So at different times we can use blocks for different reasons. So mostly during the class we're using blocks to support, as a support, and to maybe take off the edge a little bit. But we can also use blocks to work our muscles a little bit more efficiently, like you've maybe felt before when we had our arms above our head, or to work more precisely and to increase understanding. And this is what happens here. Because in mountain pose, we gently want to squeeze the block, usually we don't have a block, but our legs kind of together. So a gentle engagement of our adductor muscles, inner thigh muscles. And now with a block in between our legs, we can actually do so. We cannot just cheat, let's say, because otherwise we would lose the block. Now take an inhale, roll the shoulders back, and as you exhale, move your hip creases forward. So we tilt forward out of the pelvis and keep on gently squeezing the block. Don't overdo it. And once you feel the stretch kicking in your hamstrings, slide your hands down to your knees, to your thighs. Make sure you keep on rolling the shoulders back, crown of your head reaching to the front. And gently squeeze the block. Now why that? I find that it gives me a little bit more of an idea of direction. It also protects my lower back, which tends to be quite weak sometimes. So this gentle action of our adductor muscles, the inside of our thighs, can help to make this whole pose a little, and this whole movement moving forward, healthier really for our lower back. Gives us more support and a clearer idea of direction. Let's have another few cycles of breath. If you find that you can slide your hands a little bit further down your shins or your thighs, please do so, working the hamstrings. From here, bend your knees slightly, only to be able to remove the block. Release the block down towards the floor. Take the other one as well, so you have two blocks. And now you're still feeling that imprint in between your mid-thighs, I imagine. Now, imagine you were still squeezing that block without that block really being there anymore. On your next exhale, release your upper body all the way down. Bend your knees a tiny bit, so allow your body to drape down. Have the feet a bit closer together. Upper body sinking down. On your next inhale, push your feet down. Lift your heart first before you sweep your arms out to the sides. Come to standing. On your exhale, join your palms together. Sweep your arms out as you inhale. On your exhale, move your chest forward. Gently squeeze your upper legs together. Bend your legs halfway, release down. Inhale, half standing forward bend. Place your hands on your blocks. Exhale, standing forward bend, maybe micro bend your knees. Inhale, pushing the feet down, sweep your arms out, come to standing. On your exhale, join your palms. So inhale, sweep your arms out. Continue that squeezing action of your mid-thighs as you move forward and drape down. Micro bend your knees halfway. Inhale, lift your heart, half standing forward bend. Roll the shoulders back. Now from here we want to position the blocks flat on the floor, and we walk it all the way back into our downward facing dog. So this is a new architecture really of this pose, and might mean that it's more accessible to people, having the hands a little bit higher on blocks. To be honest, I'm not 100% convinced of this setup, because the blocks tend to slide. So you really want to make sure that they don't, and that might mean that you need to make the stance a little bit shorter than you usually do. So walking the feet a bit further to the front. Bend your knees so you can lengthen the lower back a little bit more. Engage your arms, push your hands down, guide your heels back all the while having the knees bent. You can guide the heels back. Now the next time you exhale, how far can you extend your legs without sacrificing length in your lower back? Be honest to yourself. Inhale, bend again, re-establish length. Exhale, straighten your legs as far as they're willing to go. Continue in your own breathing rhythm. The next time you inhale, shift your weight forward into plank pose. Probably need to step your blocks a little bit further to the front. So in this setup we have a little bit less weight on our wrists really. The architecture, the angle of the pose is just different and therefore a little bit more accessible to some people. Lengthen the tailbone towards your heels. If this proves too hard, lower the knees down. Let's have 2 more deep cycles of breath. Shoulder blades firm against the back ribs. Draw the navel in, crown reaches to the front. Now, as you exhale next time, lower the knees down, sit back into child's pose and just move the blocks to the side. As you inhale next time, come straight to tabletop position, hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Spread your hands really, really wide. As you exhale next time, tailbone is heavy, navel draws in, head is really heavy, spread the shoulder blades as wide as you can into cat pose. On your next inhale, lift your buttocks, navel sinks down, lift your heart, roll the shoulders back without collapsing in the shoulders. Continue as you exhale, cat pose. As you inhale, lifting your heart, filling your lungs in cow. Arms stay straight. Exhale into cat, so continue in your arm breathing rhythm. Inhaling cow. And see whether you can be mindful and initiate that whole movement in your pelvis and allow then the movement to travel like a wave up your spine, the neck and the head being the last part of your body to follow. One more round. Before we meet in a neutral table, so crown reaches to the front, sit bones reach back. Lift your right leg away from the floor and curl the right hip open. Move the left shin a little bit further back for stability reasons. Reposition your left hand so it's exactly underneath your left shoulder. Right hand to the hip. Now spiral the right hip open and push through the right heel. Lengthen the tail. This might be a little bit balancy, spiraling your chest a little bit further up towards the sky. Push through the right heel. Remember this setup, the setup of your upper body and your leg. We're going to use that later on in a slightly more challenging pose. Pushing through the heel, stacking the right hip as good as it goes on top of the left hip. Before you lower your right hand back down to the floor, square your hips and step your right foot in between your hands. Right shin wants to be vertical to the floor as the left thigh wants to be vertical to the floor. Take one block with you, come to upright, and for now just park the block on your thigh. Left hand on your sacrum, lengthen the sacrum down, lift your heart. Square the hips, and as you lengthen the sacrum down, observe the beautiful opening in your left hip flexor muscles. Left thigh, left hip. Lifting your heart. Keep that as you reach through your left fingertips, moving high towards the sky. From here, keep the length in your left arm and just lean over to the right side. It does not need to be much. Again, a side bend opening the left side seam of our body. Coming back to center, reaching our right fingertips high towards the sky. Keep on lengthening the tail. Another inhale before you sweep your arms down by the sides of your body. Get hold of your block like so. Reach your arms to the front, and on the next time you inhale, reach your arms above your head like we've done before. It looks like nothing when it's quite a surprise that using this prop really adds, spices the whole thing, spices it up, makes it a little bit more intense, working our shoulder muscles stabilizing our shoulder joint. Now bend your elbows. You can always back off, of course, and just bring your hands to your hips. Bend your elbows, make sure your elbows don't splay out to the sides, and position the block at your to the back of your head. And now lean gently back. Tiny bit of a back bend, lengthening the tailbone down. Make sure your elbows don't splay out. Inhale, come to upright. Move the block, bring the block to the floor, and flip-flop the right foot further to the front, or move the left shin a little bit, the left knee further back. If you need to pad the back knee, I actually need padding. It's quite, I need padding here. So you want to double the mat. Left, right hand underneath your right shoulder, using the block, and open your chest to the left. Left hand to the hip. You can also choose like the lower height of the block, but encourage you to use blocks today. Spiral your chest up, rolling the left shoulder back. Continue breathing and see whether you want to sink a little bit deeper in your hip. The front shin wants to be vertical to the floor. Slowly all the way back to center. Lower your hands both back down to the floor. This time push back in your dog without blocks. Bend your knees again so you re-establish length in your lower spine. Inhale, shift your weight forward into plank pose, legs engaged if you don't want to bring the knees to the floor. On your exhale, push it back into your dog once more. Inhale, plank pose, lengthen the tail, knees to the floor, child's pose for one exhale. Inhale, let's meet in tabletop position, hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, lengthen the whole spine. Extend your left leg, curl your left hip open, move the right shin a bit back for stability reasons. Now push through the left heel again and stack your left hip as good as it goes on top of the right hip. Make sure your right hand is exactly underneath your right shoulder. And if you tend to hyperextend your elbow, micro bend it, but do not collapse on the shoulder. The left leg is parallel to the floor, lengthen through the tail, reach through the heel. Left hand goes to the floor. Step your left foot in between your hands. Again, front shin is vertical, back thigh is vertical to the floor, so you might need to reposition the stance. Bring your torso to upright, take one block with you and park it on your front thigh. Right hand goes onto the sacrum. Lengthen the sacrum down, and as you do so, unsquare the hips with the front of your yoga mat. You feel this nice opening stretch in your right hip flexor. Lift your heart. Make sure we do not clench the toes before you reach your right fingertips high towards the sky. Take an inhale here. On your exhale, gently bend over to the left. Keep on reaching through your fingertips as you come back to upright. And now allow your left hand to join your right, so reach both sets of fingertips high towards the sky, keeping the length in your tailbone. On your next exhale, sweep your arms down. Get hold of the block again. Reach your arms to the front. Gently press the block. Don't overdo it like crazy, but gently hold the block. You don't want to lose it as you reach your arms high above your head. Make sure your lower ribs don't just pop out. Draw the navel in, lengthen your tailbone. Again, very welcome to just skip this part and bring your hands to the hips. Otherwise, bend your elbows, make sure they don't splay out to the sides. And bring the back of your head against the block, leaning back. Lifting your heart. Elbows reaching high. The next time you inhale, come to upright. Bring the block to the floor to the left. Flip-flop the left foot a little bit further to the front, or the right knee further back. You might need to double the mat. The left hand is on the block on the outside edge of your left foot, either high or the lower level. Now as you inhale next time, curl your right hip a little bit open, roll the right shoulder back, right hand goes to the right hip, lift your heart. Make sure you continue breathing and maybe sink a little bit deeper in your hips. From here, bring your right hand back to the floor. Remove the block, curl the back toes under. Before, on this side, we step it all the way to the front. Standing forward bend. Your knees might want to bend. Release your upper body down. Being really, really heavy. Get hold of the block, have it in front of you, underneath your chest, underneath your head, hanging heavily. Inhale, come into your half standing forward bend. Use the block again. Roll the shoulders back. Crown reaches to the front, sit bones reach back. From here, you only want to bend the left knee. Right leg stays engaged. Lengthen your spine even further, and the next time you exhale, with this length open to your right side. Right hand to the right hip. Reach the crown of your head to the front. Spine really, really long. Now you might remember the pose we've done before. I asked you to kind of remember the blueprint where we were pushing the heel back. Now what we do the same thing now, just standing on our left leg. Keep the left knee bent to start with. Lift your right foot away from the floor and reach your right heel far back. Stacking your right hip as good as it goes on top of your left hip. Roll the right shoulder back. And if you find that you can challenge your balance a little bit more, see whether you want to extend your left leg. And to start with, we keep on gazing down. Your left hand positioned on the block. Underneath your left shoulder, keep on pushing through the heel. Bend your left knee again, float the block, so keep on holding the block away from the floor. Reach your left arm across the room to the front. This is balancy. Challenge yourself and step your right foot back into warrior number 2. To start with, park the block on your front thigh again and readjust the stance. The front heel is in line with the arch of the back foot, and maybe the stance wants to be a little bit smaller, but make sure that the front shin is vertical. Right hand to the right hip. Allow the right hip to lower a little bit further down, so we make sure that our hip points are level with the floor. We tend to have the right hip point a little bit too high. You're doing the right thing when you feel the stretch accentuating in your right inner thigh. Relax the shoulders away from your ears. And now we bring the arms back into the equation. Take the block in your left hand and reach your arms away from view, parallel to the floor. Shoulders relaxed away from your ears. Spine is growing high towards the sky. The pelvis is level. The pelvis is like a bowl from where your spine, like a flower, like growing out of a pot, growing tall. Inhale, lift your arms, straighten your front leg, the flying version. The block changes hands. Exhale, lower your arms down, rebend your knee. Block changes hands. Inhale, straighten your front leg, lift your arms. Block changes hands, lower your arms all the way down, rebend your knee. Continue in your own breathing rhythm. The block drawing circles in the air. Flying warrior number 2. Try to find ease, moving with your breath. The next time you inhale, straighten your front leg, reach your arms parallel to the floor, your left hand holds the block, lengthen the tailbone down and gently push the front big toe down into the floor to stabilize the front knee. From here, pelvis being level, allow now the right hip point to lift, so we tilt the pelvis sideways, the left hip point lowers down, we reach forward, forward, forward into triangle pose. Bring your block to the inside of your front leg and your right hand to the hip. Make sure your left hand is underneath the shoulder. Spiral your chest up, lengthen the tail, and see how much you can really stack the right hip on top of the left hip without feeling all tightness in your lower back. If this happens, rather allow the right hip point to, not too far, but to a little bit move forward in space again, but keep on lengthening the tail. Now keep your upper body as is and only bend your front knee. Take the block a little bit further to the front. In extended side angle pose, we want to make sure that the knee doesn't fall inward. So what we can do here with our setup like this, that our arm helps us to push against the knee and to keep it open. Make sure you do not collapse on the lower shoulder. Roll the right shoulder back. Keep on pushing to the outside edge of your back foot, so we do not collapse in the arch of the back foot. And now, in order to transition back into warrior number 2, we initiate this in our pelvis. So the pelvis is now tilting sideways, like we've explored before. Now allow the right hip point to sink down and the left hip point to lift. And this brings your torso back to upright. Reach through your fingertips and observe on how your spine is growing tall. Gaze to your back arm. Have your back palm face towards the sky. As you inhale, lift your arm above your head. Cartwheel your arms down. Lift the back heel in our lunge. Get hold of both blocks again underneath your shoulders. Back heel is pointing straight backwards. And have them to start with at the highest level. Lengthen the spine. Crown of your head is reaching forward. Keep this length in your spine as you see how far you can extend your front leg. Hug the right hip point towards the midline so we do not just collapse in there. Roll the shoulders back. Keep the spine straight. So don't just drape forward. Keep the spine reaching forward in space. From here, you want to bend the front knee. As you exhale, step it forward into your standing forward bend. Inhale, half standing forward bend. Use the blocks. Actually, you can remove one block, just put it to the side. Put it underneath your right shoulder. Lengthen your spine as much as you can before you only bend the right knee and open into the twist to your left. Left hand goes to the left hip. Spiral your chest up towards the sky. Make sure the feet are parallel, grounding evenly down into the floor. A few more cycles of breath here in the spinal twist. Before we transition, like we've done on the other side, into half moon pose, and keep the right leg bent to start with. It helps us to balance really. Maybe you need to reposition the block a little bit, so lift the left foot away from the floor, push through the left heel, and stack the left hip as good as it goes on top of the right hip, spiraling your left shoulder back. See whether you can extend your right leg. Half moon pose. Ardha Chandrasana. Rebend your front knee. Reach your right arm to the front and step it slowly back into your warrior 2. Park the block on your front thigh and take your time to find the stance that works for you. Aligning the front heel with the arch of the back foot. Left hand onto the left hip point in order to remind that hip point to lower down so it doesn't lift higher than the front hip point. So again, the pelvis is level with the floor. Instead of tilting forward when we move into triangle pose or extended side angle pose. Keep that as you reach your arms to the front and back. Hold the block with your right hand, arms parallel to the floor. Inhale, straighten your front leg, lift your arms. Block changes hands, exhale, lower down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower down. Allow the block to travel this circle and your spine to keep on growing tall in your own breathing rhythm. Flying warrior number 2. The next time you inhale, straighten your front leg, arms parallel to the floor, your right hand holds the block. So the hips are still level, hip points still level, lengthen the tailbone down, front big toe pushes down into the floor, and now allow the pelvis to tilt sideways. As you reach your right arm forward, place your block to the inside of your front leg, hand underneath your shoulder, left hand goes to the left hip, spiral your chest up and lengthen the tail. Triangle pose. You're always super welcome to adjust the stance. Make it a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit wider. But usually I rather recommend to make it shorter than wider. Because people usually tend to push them too hard already. So I would say 90% of the time the stance can be made shorter. From here, only thing we do is rebending the front knee and taking the block a little bit further to the front, extended side angle pose. Maybe the stance wants to be a little bit shorter, so there's more space to open the pelvis sideways. So stacking the left hip a little bit more on top of the right hip, lengthen the tail. Use your arm to keep the right knee open. Allow the crown of your head to reach across the room. And if it's too much to gaze towards the sky, you definitely don't want any cramps or tightness in your neck, then rather gaze down or to the side. In order to transition back into warrior number 2, lower the left hip point down, lift the right hip point, so you level the pelvis again, and this brings your whole torso back to upright. Reach through your fingertips, arms parallel to the floor. Lift your back palm to face the sky, gaze to your back palm. As you inhale, raise your arm above your head, cartwheel your arms down in your lunge. So lift the back heel, take the blocks underneath your shoulders and lengthen before you see how far you can extend your right leg without sacrificing length in your lower back again. Back heel is pointing straight back. Few cycles of breath here. Before you rebend your front leg, set the blocks to the side, push it back into your downward facing dog this time. Few cycles of breath here. If child's pose is the better choice, please go and have a rest. Gaze in between your hands. If you're in child's pose, transition back into your downward facing dog now. Gaze in between your hands. We're going to pigeon pose with the right knee to the right knee goes to the right wrist, and we're using a block underneath the right buttocks. It might seem quite high for some people, but still we're going to use it. Now slide the left foot maybe a little bit further back, top of the foot goes to the floor. And since we are pretty high for some bodies, so some bodies would rather have something that is a little bit lower than the block, what we can work with at this point then is try to square or parallel the front shin a little bit more with the front edge of the yoga mat. If this is something you want to work with, bring your hands flat on the floor, or see whether you can lower your elbows down, and if you like, rest the forehead on your second block. Flex the right foot And you might want to explore, instead of freezing here and maybe just wishing that this may soon be over, what small micro swaying movements from one side to the other do to the pose and to your hips. If this is too much, of course, you want to back off. You want to bend your knee a little bit more, so have the angle between your thigh and your shin smaller. That lowers the intensity pretty significantly. If it creates tension in your knee, it's time to have a rest. Then this is not a pose you want to work with. Encourage breathing. Slowly come a little bit more to upright, so place your hands back on the floor and push it back into your downward facing dog. Feel the aftertaste. Instead of being onto the next thing, which would be the second side, take a few moments to savor the aftertaste. Shift your weight forward. Place the left knee next to your left wrist. Slide the right foot a little bit further back. The top of the foot goes to the floor. Take the block, place it underneath your left sit bone. And since we are pretty high, some of you will agree, I mean, to some bodies this is already like a lot, and then it's super valuable work as well to just stay here. Some people might find that this is a little bit too high to really feel something. But as you lower your forearms to the floor, you might feel where this is getting. It's a different architecture we're usually working with. Just be curious to explore how this works for you. And remember, we don't always have to go to the very, very edge. We can back off now and then and allow a little bit more room to play with, a little bit more room to understand. Release into your breath. And you choose how parallel the front shin is with the top edge of your yoga mat. Let's have another cycle of breath. Before you bring your hands back to the floor, if they aren't already, remove the block. Actually, you want to bring both blocks to the front, like so. And this time transition back into your downward facing dog using blocks once more. And again, the stance might need to be a little bit smaller than usually in your dog. Different architecture again, different way to work with it. Bend the knees a tiny bit if you find this creates more space. You might need to make the stance smaller so you don't slide. Your blocks don't slide on the mat. Now you might want to follow me on this, what comes next. Or instead of jumping, you might just want to walk. So your call, you gaze in between your hands, in between your blocks. And the next time you exhale, you not only jump to the front, but you jump through into lifted staff pose, lifted Dandasana. Before we sit down, cross our legs in cross-legged position and have the blocks on either side of our buttocks. I just need to we move a little bit back because the floor is pretty uneven here, next to our buttocks. Cross-legged position. Now you press your hands down into the blocks and lift your buttocks away from the floor. Draw the navel in and see whether you can also move the feet away from the floor. So, doing some core work here. Now you lower all the way down. Lean a little bit back only to alternate the cross of your legs. the same thing one more time. So you press your hands down into the floor, see whether you can lift your buttocks, draw the navel in. Don't worry about rounding your upper body, that's totally fine. And now see whether you can lift the heels, the feet away from the floor. If you can, swing a little bit from forward and backwards, and see whether you can swing your legs through into Vajrasana. One block on either side of your hips. Sweep your arms out to the sides as you inhale, grow tall. Exhale, release your arms down by the sides of your body and come to a sit on the right block. So you're probably just having the right sit bone on the block, it's totally fine. On your next inhale, sweep your arms out to the sides and take the left block with you. On your exhale, the block changes hand, twist to the right side, left hand to the outside of your right thigh, and your right hand is on the block behind you, so you don't need to lean back. Spine is still growing tall. Wringing out your spine. Continue breathing. As you inhale, come all the way back to center, take the block with you. On your exhale, block changes hand, lower your arms down by the sides, park your block where it was. Inhale, come onto your knees, sweep your arms out to the sides and up. On your exhale, sit down on the left, come to a sit on the other block, the left block. Grow tall. As you inhale, take your right block with you. On your exhale, block changes hand, twist to the left. Right hand to the outside of your left thigh. Your breath oscillating your upper body. Your exhale bringing your spine out. Your inhale gently lengthening your spine. As you inhale next time, sweep your arms out to the sides and up, take the block with you. As you exhale, release your arms down, block changes hand. Inhale, sweep your arms out to the sides, come onto your knees. On your exhale, release your arms down by the sides of your body. And now just remove the blocks a little bit so you can sit down and swing your legs all the way to the front. You want to have one block handy, we just need one block forward comes next. Bring the feet onto the floor, elbows onto the floor. Take your time as you roll down vertebra per vertebra. Make sure your feet arrive underneath your knees. You might need to have a look where they end up, otherwise it's difficult to understand really. Now take the block, take one block and have it, you choose how exactly positioned, but in between, you want to squeeze the block again in between your mid-thigh, so you have something that keeps your knees from splaying out to the sides. What I really like personally is this position, but it really depends on the body, of course, on how wide your hips, your pelvis are. From here, feet parallel, pushing equally down into the floor. Ground the lower back down into the floor. As you ground the lower back, feel how your tailbone scoops away from the skull. Now keep on scooping the tailbone away until it lifts. It lifts your sacrum, it lifts your lower back, it lifts part of your mid back, maybe even part of your upper back. Now roll the shoulders under and maybe interlace your fingers behind your back. Keep your neck long. And now you're using the block in order to keep the spine, the knees from splaying out to the sides. So this falls under the category of working precisely with props rather than supporting really. Working precisely means, so if we wouldn't have a block in between our thighs, we might just splay the knees out to the sides and not even become aware of it. If we do it now, the block falls down. Let's have a few more cycles of breath here. Make sure your feet ground equally down into the floor. And then release your arms, release your hands, unrushed, lower down vertebra per vertebra. Open your knees so you can remove the block. And this time we take the block and put it underneath the sacrum. So push the feet down, lift your buttocks unrushed, and find a position. Either you have 3 different heights to work with, either flat, mid-height, or have it like super high, which might be a little bit too high for some bodies. I feel relatively comfortable, or I feel comfortable here, so I'm going to work with this height. And you want to flip-flop the feet further to the side so the knees can maybe fall a bit more towards each other. Now this falls under the category A again, props working as support. This is a pretty restorative pose where we try to let go as much as we can, allowing gravity to do the job. Allow your palms to face the sky and your breath to wash through your body. Scan your body and see whether you're still holding unnecessary tension in some places. I'm sure you do, we always do. And with each exhale, allow your body to soften and to let go more and more of this unnecessary tension, nothing to hold. So just one more note, you want to make sure that the block really is underneath the sacrum and not underneath your lumbar spine. The sacrum being part of this pelvic bowl, the flat lower part of your, lowermost part of your back. Three more deep cycles of breath here. And from here, in order to remove the block, I often recommend to gently engage your pelvic floor muscles. Just gently engage them as you push the feet down, lift your buttocks. That can help to, if people have lumbar spine or sacroiliac joint problems, this will feel quite like a support. And then roll down vertebra per vertebra. Remove the block. Bring the bottom of your feet together. Open your knees to the sides, and I recommend, even if you don't need it, to take your blocks, the blocks that you still have close by, and put one block under each knee, outer thigh. And before we just release here for a few more moments, take your hands and or take the heels of your hands, I should say, and gently push against the groin, upper thigh / groin. So push against. Your arms might straighten, they might not straighten. It really depends on how long your arms are as compared to your torso. But what we want to do is pushing against and kind of wiggling a little bit from one side to the other, and like that, as if you wanted to detach the lumbar spine or the spine from the pelvis. You might feel that this kind of increases the space in between the vertebra of the lower back. It can be really nice and spacious feeling in the lower back. Before you release, allow your palms to face the sky. Releasing all tension, nothing to hold. Stay here for 5 more cycles of breath before you extend your legs in Shavasana. Or if you really like to be in this place at this time, you just might want to stay in this pose until the end of the class. And reconnect to your breathing. Observe on how your breath massages your body from the inside. And how it distributes in between your belly, your chest, up to underneath your collarbones. How it starts at the tip of your nose and how it ends at the tip of your nose. The exhale being warmer than the inhale. There's a difference of temperature between the air entering our body and air leaving our body again. And whenever you start to space out and you notice you're wandering off in thought, gently allow your mind to join your body, to join your breath again. If you haven't extended your legs already, please do so now. Start to make small movements with your fingers and with your toes. Bring your awareness back to the floor underneath you, supporting all your weight. Before you draw your knees one after the other into your chest and roll over to the right side of your body. Make yourself small there. Continue to roll into your hands, come all the way to a sit, comfortable seated posture with your eyes still closed. With your hands resting heavily on your knees or your thighs. Shoulders relaxed away from your ears. A few more moments to feel the echo of today's practice, whatever it is to observe. You being observer in what is being observed at the same time. Join your palms in front of your chest. Allow your thumbs to touch your breastbone. The next time you exhale, slowly open your eyes again. I thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed. Namaste.